Sometimes I go ahead.
Hi, everybody. This is Vladi, and I have a very special guest today. And good morning, day, or evening, wherever you are. And I have invited a fantastic person. She is she's been rendezvousing in the world of ours of Hollywood and friendships from last past year and watching her. And actually, I really invite you to listen to her very carefully because her life story is wow. I think that's the word for it. And what she has gone through and how she got out of everything and what she's doing now, it's remarkable. So I bow to that and thank you for coming. Kim
Yeah.
Cano is her pen name is Natashabrune, and she will be talking. We are talking today about the. I do have a version. She already has a new cover on this one, but it's the Vice Marie, and you can get this on Amazon. And I'm sure, is there anyone else? Natasha will tell you, or Kim will tell you where you can get it as well. But
Best place, Amazon. Yeah.
Amazon, fantastic. So I'll just hand the mic to you and tell us because Kim has written 5 books, and we will primarily talk about Vice Marie today and how she. I mean, the story is remarkable, and she will tell us her intention with the book. So I'll just literally let her talk because it's just fascinating to listen to what she's gone through. It's really transformative. And like there are so many things. And I have to say that when I was teenager and I was 14, around 14, I know that when I felt like, on the veggies and parents weren't cool that time, when you're a teenager, parents are definitely not cool. At least I didn't think they were at that time. And it was that unique groups you're mixing, and there's lots of confusion because you're almost not sure what your identity is yet, and we do silly stuff and go through stuff. And I remember picking a book from Naomi Campbell, The Swan, and that had such an impact on my life in sort of a decisions I've made that it's remarkable. So Natasha's book is something I see in many people really realizing what is a true transformation. So I'm handing you the mic.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm sitting here in beautiful Hawaii on the island of Oahu with a punch bowl. You can see the backside of Punch Bowl Crater behind me. I'm at my son's home. He's allowed me to hang out and help him with support through his father's passing that just occurred a couple of weeks ago. And I basically have been using what I wrote about in my book. I'm the author of The Wise Marine. Natasha Brune is my pen name. I created the pen name with the last name Brune because I have cousins that stem from Italy and Sicily with the last name of Bruni. And so I captured that with the name Natasha and thought that it was a great mix with the name of the Wise Marie, because I started off with different versions in 2020 at the start of the pandemic when we were in lockdown. That's where the book came from. It was more of a venting therapy tool because as Phil Goldfine, my friend, likes to say, ADHD is a paradigm. So don't think of it as a disability. Think of it as your superhero, your superpower. You're able to multitask and think of many thoughts at the same time, but it doesn't hinder who you are and what you are going for, right? In so many words, he said that to me and reminded me that it's not a hiccup, right? It actually helps to boost above all others because other people are not able to multitask, right? So I'm just clearing the air on that if I tend to go, in different directions. But I have applied what I've learned since I was young at that tender age of being a teenager, just like what you were talking about. I feel like you were speaking of me, Vladi, being a teenager and being uncomfortable, and then parents not being cool and not getting along, and then they're working, we don't understand their world, and we have hormones going on. And sometimes in the case of people who don't understand that they do have maybe need more attention in school, and nowadays they have all these programs and people understand and notice, you take tests and assessments to see if maybe someone is on the spectrum or whatnot, and there are all those tools. There are all those tools. In the 70s, however, and in Hawaii, where the academic level, and this is no down on anyone here or anyone in Hawaii, because I'm from here, right? I was born here. in Hawaii, it is known that the academic level sometimes is sadly 10 years behind what it is in other states. So let's take Cherry Creek School District in Colorado, A+ district for kids to go to public school, right? And then you take Hawaii. You'd have to take the highest part of Hawaii to even level up to a quarter of where you're at. And I know this for a fact because my son went through that school system. So here in Hawaii, with having anything undiagnosed like that back in the 70s, teachers not understanding and knowing, you feel a little isolated and you start to gravitate towards people that are like you, right? Aligned with you and your thoughts. Other people who maybe have ADHD or other types of debilitating things in school, you know, like tendencies to not concentrate. And you take all of that and you throw in a little bit of drugs and you're making bad decisions. And now you're on a different path than what your parents had meant, you know, for you to be on. Right. And if you're a latchkey child where your parents are always working and there is no adult supervision, someone with guidance, or you're not as a parent setting your child up. And back in the 70s, parents didn't care about mindset training, or like if you had your water bottle, you were on your own, honey. Okay. There were no cell phones. If you weren't home by 4:59 p.m. walking in that door, you were going to get spoken to by a single parent, because that's all they had was the control and the key, the lock key, latch key child, and all of that. So no downing on any parent who has to have that kind of situation, but there are methods to put in place to catch them at the tender age children when they're at that teenage, that sponge age where they're absorbing everything. There's a gust of wind coming. Don't mind, this happens here where I'm sitting. So that being said, Vladi, is I took what I had during the pandemic to vent with this therapist I was seeing at that time, right? Short time. And I wrote the book and I hacked away and I started at conception all the way until where I was in the pandemic, tried to get towards that, and then stopped really with the details in the 90s because it was just too painful to deal with. And I flew to Hawaii in the pandemic and did a real estate venture for 2 years off and on. So I don't want to go too further into the interview without, you know, I want you to ask me a question if you need to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell us, so what was the first kind of intention, and intention for the book, of course, but also what was the first time you felt I'm going to write a book, and how did you feel about that? Because all the dark stuff about the Vice Marie who went through all these things you can mention is, it must have been because you lose control also, you know, when with the drinking and drugs and everything that was happening. And like you said, when we become part of that environment, we don't know how else to make decisions because we make them as we were either taught or we observed in the environment. But how did you actually come up with an idea? What was the trigger that you felt I'm going to write about that?
It actually came up first in college, and I hand wrote a book because we were instructed to handwrite a book in a composition book, you know, those composition wide rule books in college. So I went to college late. I put myself through college with all of my own money. And my mom gave me $335 for, it's all she could afford at that time, for like books to add for 1 quarter, right? So as an adult, post rehab, I decided to attend a business college, which what is now known as Kaplan, and it used to be Heald College in Honolulu. And I took up hospitality and tourism and received all my own grants, funding, and work for myself, you know, as a W-2 employee. And that teacher in English assigned us write a book, pick anything, write about yourself and do like a memoir or whatever. And it triggered me in my mind and thought, wow, I have a lot of stories I could actually write about. And at that time, I was still healing from my brother's suicide. So it was more of a book that leaned on his relationship with me at that time. And that's where the book went, and it got a little dark. And so I stopped and wrote it and ended it for the sake of the assignment and put it on the shelf. And I have no idea. It's probably in some box in my basement somewhere in Colorado, maybe, or maybe it got tossed. I don't know. But I hand wrote the book the way he said to write it. So I wrote it in pencil. and erased my mistakes and wrote like a thick composition book. And that was my
Mm.
first taste of the book, actually, to be honest. And then during the pandemic, I wrote again, stopped in the 90s where it got super painful at that, in the story, which are chapters 9 and 10 in the book. Chapters 9 and 10, when I read it myself to proof it, and I thought I was going to be the audible voice,
Mhm.
the audio voice, it was actually meant for me to read it so I could perfect it, make it better, but I threw up. Isn't that crazy?
Mm.
I physically got
Mm.
sick after recording chapters 9 and 10. It was like I relived it and I had to purge the vibe.
Yeah.
I got it all out and I felt fine afterwards. I wasn't sick. I didn't have the stomach flu. It was just that. And it was meant to
Mm.
be almost like a healing
Yeah.
crisis. Isn't that
Yeah.
crazy?
It happens when you almost get to the next level. And we often experience this through like because we intuitively feel like doing something, then we make a decision, we'll go for it. But then obviously it's the habit the body has, and the mind likes, it doesn't like the unfamiliar. So when we make a decision, it's jumping into a uncomfortable zone and finding comfort in discomfort and really letting it go. And I think because we're so clingy these days, like we want to be in control, and we're just too controlling. Like it's everything's about competition, and we're looking outside of us, and it doesn't really
I don't
bring
like that. Yeah, I
the
don't like
inner
that
happiness.
vibration.
Yeah.
I
So
don't like
when
that.
you're talking about this, is you intuitively felt, but you relived it. So what happened was the emotional involvement, because that's how we go back and we can relive this. That's why it's important, why through all the personal development teachings, don't live in the past. But when you go back, it's
Yeah,
hard to ignore because it's your life.
it is. It
And
is.
it brings back the memories, it brings back the emotions, and it brings the situations and what was happening, and we start connecting these dots so fast. We can connect it to people and things that happen, and situations we had to go through, and how we felt. It almost re-emerges from inside us unless we healed from it, like you said, and removed it by transforming. And
Well,
it's
yeah.
not a day thing, so
And there is no black and white rule for everyone to
mm,
deal with things. Sometimes you put it on a shelf, which isn't always wise because you're postponing and you're the inevitable, right? You're
mm.
pausing and you're putting on hold and you're leaving a loose end, in my opinion. I don't like loose ends. I don't like loose ends in
Mm,
business. I don't like loose ends in life. I like everything nice and tight, or else I can't relax and sleep at night. I like everything to be like, okay, the vibration is all good, right? It's like not going to bed when you're angry before you're arguing with someone or feeling some kind of remorse, right? It has to be this inner peace. And so no matter how chaotic my life is and what is going on, I make sure before my head hits the pillow and I'm closing my eyes, that I'm at peace with myself. Because if not, the next day is not going to be set up correctly. So there's all
that's
of
so
those
true.
don't mind, there's a technician here. He's walking around because there's a lot of pests in Hawaii. And so you have to do pest control no matter where you live. You could live in the wealthiest neighborhood and you'll still have a cockroach that could come through and infiltrate into your home.
Hmm.
So you have to do pest control.
Hmm.
Um,
Bless.
anyway, but I mean, just to circle back to that, that is really what it is. I mean,
Mm,
my intention with the book is to reach people of an age, like, for example, my story of the Wise Marie covers, yes, I cover, the ancestors and the conception and where I've come from, but the meat and potatoes of the story is truly like 11 years, right? And then it carries over into the several years post rehab into my real estate career, Bob Proctor, and ends there on a positive note, and then has an excerpt for volume 2 where it starts to look like, oh my gosh, it's negative again, but it's not. There's a reason, and there's the part in there about my son driving like 100 miles an hour. It was a reconnection that I had to have, and that's whose house I'm sitting in right now. It was meant
mm,
to be, with all the things that have occurred in my life, no matter how painful they were, to get me to where I am today. And that's what I want to do. I want to touch upon, if it means it's a 14-year-old, which I know I said my book may not be appropriate for parents of maybe like Republicans who want their children to read. I'm telling you right now, Phil Goldfine told me, I want my daughter and my kids to read your book so that they
mm,
know Don't mess around, because some kids think, Mom, I'm gonna go to the mall. I'm gonna go to the beach, Mom, or I'm gonna go to the, this show with this group of people. You as a parent never ever know all the kids in that group of people, and you never know who's going to bring up something that may be inappropriate, that that child that you have raised and put all your time and effort in, and you think, okay, they're going to make a great decision. What if this person is highly influential, right, in that
Mhm.
group, and causes them to take a little hit of heroin, cocaine? It could literally
Mm.
trigger and ruin everything that
Yeah.
you as a parent, not ruin, I shouldn't use that word, because then it seems like it's pointless not to raise our children. It could intervene with all the methods and
Mhm.
everything you have embedded into this child you trust. And so you have to build a soldier in this day and age, your own child, like how they in Israel, and this is no down on Israel, they send all residents to military school. You got to go and join the military for a couple years and give back to your country, right? So it's the same thing.
Mhm.
Live in an evil world. You have to set your
Mhm.
children up as soldiers so they can survive around all these people, because even in Hawaii, it's become evil. You can't go and
The
walk.
truth is that so many kids these days they bubbled, and I know we mean well, like parents try and protect kids too much sometimes, but I've seen it from the upbringing. I was way more driven. I had to take care of things. We had to do things. There wasn't any your knee, a little bit of blood. It was like, oh, it's just the blood. Get up and keep moving. Like it literally was completely different world. And some things, yes, of course, it's great that we move towards more mindfulness, but there are some we're overdoing and we're not actually teaching kids. They can't handle stress, they can't handle pressure. Suicidal rate goes up for 4.5 times last few years, just because they can't handle it, because they're not having an awareness. It's people say, well, I don't want to scare them. But it's not about scaring them, it's about awareness of what can happen, what to do if something like that happen, and what are the trigger words, how you ask for help. If they know, they can actually act correctly in that situation, they can make the right decisions. If they have no idea what's happening, they've never been told, their mind don't even go there. So tell us in a nutshell who Vice Marie is.
The wise Marie is me.
I know.
Uh,
Tell us a little story, like how does it move from, just to kind of capture, don't give everything away, but
yeah, so basically the wise Marie is a play on words, right? She made wise, bad decisions when she was young, but those decisions that she made saved her life, even if she had to go through the pain. And then as she got older, she understood where she went because of what she did by putting herself through all the training and everything that because I went to prison, I went to jail. I wouldn't call it prison, but I would say jail. I went to rehab, and I stayed in rehab for a voluntary time where I had extended my stay there for a while, right? And then put myself through college, and then worked and paid for my own bills, paid for my own shelter, and didn't ask anybody for any help, and literally just kept going until I'm at where I'm at today, right? And so
yes.
now, yes, I make wise decisions. Yes, I've made wise decisions in the last, and even throughout that time frame in the 11-year escapade when I was out there. And I had to make decisions for survival, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
How did you survive? Because you're such a strong person, and throughout the whole story, it shows that everything you had to do and the decisions you've taken to really become who you are, which is remarkable. But
To
was
be
there a
honest,
point, what was the light when you actually, like the way I've asked you, what was the moment you felt I want to write a book and share this story? What was the moment you felt, okay, this is it, I'm changing? The decision you made, no more, or enough is enough. Was there a particular moment, or was it?
yes, I have a chapter in the book, and I believe I combined both of them, The Good Brother and SWAT Team Sally. So SWAT Team Sally is me. It's making fun of myself, being an idiot and being in that situation. But being in the cell block and then poking, I have a mirror next to me right here, so just coincidentally, but I was poking a mirror inside of the cell block and it was soft, like a funhouse mirror, because they don't give you a real mirror because you could crack the mirror and cut yourself and kill yourself, whatever, right? They don't even let you have your shoelaces. That was the pivotal moment, looking down and seeing that I didn't have a sheet on a mattress, and the mattress smelled like pine sol. I didn't have any of my children. I was an epic failure as a mom. And then not having, obviously a job or any kind of, it was an awakening. And instead of waiting and asking for an attorney and trying to be shiesty and getting out of another situation, it was almost like I was talking to God, and I was coming down, right? Obviously. So I was sobering up and in there for 5 days. So Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, Monday you go to court, right? So on Wednesday night, crying, sobbing, remorse, what's going on? I'm scared. Thursday night was Thanksgiving. And I had a turkey dinner that they served me through a window in a door, a slot. And I went to eat the turkey and I crushed it. And I know it sounds not pathetic, but like it was meat and it looked like toast. And I looked at myself in the funhouse mirror and I said, I am a disgusting, like I just was I was disgusted with myself, and I just put the plate down and like I was bathing in the sink because I didn't have you don't have a shower. You have a toilet with no rim. It's a stainless steel toilet. And I did not come from a dirty family. We never had a roach in the house, even though we were poor. My mom worked and it was a clean house. We had good things. We had clean dishes. She cooked when she cooked, and right. So I put myself there. I realized at that point, the pivotal moment was I put myself here. What am I doing? I could either go one way and be sneaky again and not change my life and carry on in that same path, or this is it. And so whether it's spirit, whether it was the universe, whether it was someone I was talking to out there who was listening, I don't care what. All I know is I said, I gotta stop. This is the end of this road and I must pivot and turn and do something different, because what I'm doing right now is insane. And that is the definition of insanity, is doing the same thing over and over. So I told the truth, and in telling the truth, I received a harder charge. They led me to believe that if I told the truth, and I just told them the truth of what my involvement was and what a scumbag I was. And then they pretty much threw what they called threw the book at you. So they raised it to make it so it was even more difficult for me to get out, which was actually a blessing in disguise because it helped me. So even though all of this, the book got thrown at me, it was a blessing in disguise. It was my lessons that I had to go through in order to correct myself and teach myself on my own. And I still had so much more to go, right? Like there's even a part in the book I touch up upon where the getaway driver for the bank, this girl who was an old lady in prison, in jail, and all she did all day was put together jigsaw puzzles. And my slogan is one piece at a time, putting it together one piece at a time, the Aloha Jigsaw Foundation. Because she told me this one lesson that stuck with me and it sticks with me forever. And she basically told me that get rid of that chip on your shoulder and you'll go so far in life, or you're going to end up like me. You want to stay in jail and put together jigsaw puzzles and wait for some lady to tell you when you can smoke, when you can't smoke. Pretty soon they're not going to be able to smoke in here. Like she was like an old wise owl sitting in the corner. And then she told me, you're going to have problem after problem after, I've been watching you. And she's like, you don't belong in here. Number one, you don't belong in here unless you're going to run this place. And what are you doing? You need to get, she didn't bring up anything about my like ADHD, any of that. She said, hone in on this, focus on this, and this will happen. And I listened to her and it worked. And then rehab came in the talk, and I knew the guy who was running the show of the rehab thing. And, it's all in the book. So it's all, like I said, it goes back to you're meant to be where you're at. And 80, our friend says that, live in the present, allow to receive, and things will happen, and they're supposed to happen. Even if you don't like that it's happening and that it's making you uncomfortable at the time and you're a little irritated with whatever this is, it's meant to be that it's happening because it's supposed to happen. This is how it's all coming together, right? So
this is such a powerful message, and I want everyone to re-listen to what Kim was saying, because truly every transformation happened to me, happened to many, and I've heard it from many clients, the awakening comes when you take a responsibility, because we say it all the time. Oh, I know I'm responsible, but we don't really mean it. It's kind of
I mean,
BSing ourselves. And it's really that I take a responsibility for, like Bob Proctor, actually, our mentor said, I actually still have it popping up at 12 o'clock noon on my phone. It comes, says, I'm responsible for my life, my thoughts, my feelings, my personal growth, and every result I get. Because when people find themselves in a challenging situations, they have to own up to it and say, I'm living the life I'm living because I put myself in there. And, even I found that hard before. I was like, but that's not true because I've never been mean. And, we can have and find all these excuses. But you were just talking, and that was such a powerful message. There is a reason why we have to go through it. Maybe it's to help millions later at the stage. Maybe it's to learn the session. Some say, like soul returns to life all the time because we're forming it and we're becoming wiser owls. Whatever, everybody spiritually gets the message differently. But the whole point is, it really is about us. And it really is about connecting to the present moment. Because if you can find, and I praise you for saying it many times in this interview, you said, it was a blessing. It's a blessing. You're actually looking back at the blessing. There were parts of my life which I know now were blessing, because if that didn't happen, I wouldn't have made the next decision and I wouldn't be where I am. I wouldn't even know you. So, like those are the things we don't sit down and appreciate enough. And, so that was so tell us about Bob Proctor. He was one of these, obviously, our beautiful mentor. I mean, he's the guy who
well,
helped me to awaken too.
I was I was in a girlfriend of mine got me into this network marketing thing, right? Years
Mhm.
ago. And it was like this lose weight, natural, organic. I still take the vitamins. They are very good quality, right? Anyway, but it, it was above that, okay, because she didn't get into it like that. She got into it on a product level. I was more interested in what they were doing as a community of women and men, and like just all these people coming together, not to sell the vitamin. It wasn't even about the Purium, whatever that company was.
Yeah.
It was about us as a community and taking ourselves and pushing ourselves, right? So Bob Proctor had a live event, okay? I didn't know who he was. And the girl was so excited. She was she was one of the leaders, and she was with him, and she had this live video going on back when live was just out on Facebook. And it was like she was with Bon Jovi, not saying that, what I mean, she was just so tickled, and she was with him, and she paid a lot of money, and she said, I paid him blah blah blah, I just paid him this, I I did my credit card, it was enough for a down payment on a house and this and that. And I thought, is she a lunatic paying this old man, this old guy? Sorry, I don't mean any offense towards him, because he saved my life over and over. And I said, is she's paying this old man $53,000 to talk to this dude over a weekend, and he's going to cure her and make her whatever. Oh my gosh, her sales went up. She was making like north of $60,000 a month, okay, from like
Mhm.
wherever he was, like 20, 24, whatever thousand. And so prosperity wise, that went up. She got a huge following, and everything positive was happening. And so he had this event. Come to the event, da 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 da. It'll have books, food, this and that. And it's all at the hotel. So I went, and I thought I was going to go see some old man talking about The Secret. What's The Secret? What's this movie with The Secret? And it wasn't anything like that at all. And he did the same thing he did for her that he did for me. And I spent a weekend, and it was life-changing, absolutely
Yeah.
life-changing. I met Peggy McCall there. Uh,
Mhm.
as you know, she was in the next table. And Phil Goldfine, didn't connect with them on the level I'm with them now. But then I made the contact. I saw the visual, right? I met other people there, and I went home with books. And that was the start of how Bob Proctor entered my life. And we bought I manifested a cabin in the mountains. We bought it. I ran it for almost a decade. We just closed and sold all 3 parcels. And if it wasn't for him, it was in escrow. We got it out of
Mm.
escrow. We bought it, made it ours, and it became one of our second, like it was in our real estate portfolio. And I don't even know how I did it, because at the time I didn't even have a regular, I was in between a job, making a career decision, and I listened to Bob and everything happened like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was really powerful. I think he's one of the most profound teachers. I mean, he was, I still study Bob stuff every single
Oh
day.
yeah. I want,
I
no doubt.
It's
But he's got
remarkable
done too.
how things can change for you if you really take it into your life. And that's the whole part, is like the take the message and really use it for your own self and for a family, connected to your dream, your goals. People often just compare everything, and it's so powerful when we really just sink it in, like you said, let go,
Let
surrender
go.
to things, learn to be present in the moment. That is really powerful. And yes, AD is a great kind of advocate for it, and really just feel that things are easy for us. You were mentioning what would you say was the biggest lesson you've learned before you transformed? Going back and looking back, what would you going at if there was a teenagers, and these days there's still lots of drugs everywhere, and I think it's a fear of every single parent going, oh God, I just hope that my child doesn't. But the trick is, we can only pray, the wishful praying, oh please God, doesn't work. You have to be living in the gratitude of just feeling what you desire and not the fear.
I really believe that you yourself as a parent have to know your child, and not every child, as we know, is a cookie cutter, even if there's twins or siblings who are close in age and have similarities, they think differently, right? And what resonates with them also will be different, and what aligns with them. And so subjecting them to a world of reality and not shrouding them in protection is huge, but also not allowing them to make their own decisions when they're young without the guidance that they need. Like, if I could
Mhm.
dial myself back and see what would be life changing, it would be that I stuck with my swimming and my dance career that could have dance hobby that could have led to other things, or me being a gymnast. I was really good athletically at one time in my life with all of these things, and I I did not pursue it. I'm a great
Mhm.
swimmer. Even with this shoulder that's bum,
Mhm.
I could just keep swimming and swimming, and so because I'm manifesting thinking about things while I'm swimming, so I lose track. It's a weird, I don't know if it's because I'm a Pisces. You're very ethereal, right? I get in the water and like people are like, did she just swim like 62 laps? She's not even tired. Like I could have stuck with that, been, like another Kim Phelps or whatever, but
Mhm.
I didn't. And so sports are good, but not too much, because I've seen parents do that where they're like, you got to go to soccer, you got to go to football,
Mhm.
today's tennis, today's this. And the child turns out awful, awful,
Yes.
awful, because it's
Mhm.
it's just you're grinding them with all of that. You have to allow them to make decisions. Some children want to play piano and they're musically inclined. Then let them play the piano. Go buy them a piano. Go fund it, because piano feeds the mind and teaches them things and all that stuff, right? If they're better with playing ukulele, then let them play the ukulele and invest in it. Those music is lovely. And my mom
Yes.
used to have music playing that was classical as she got ready for work, but never the kind of music that I loved. And
Mhm.
I had brothers and sisters. So like all those kinds of things mean something, but you have to have the guidance for the child. You have to have a, like a wide array of things to keep them interested, and you also have to go with the vibe of who they are. So I'll give you an
Mhm.
example. My son's dad, I assume, because I didn't raise this son where I'm sitting, right? And I had these long
Mhm.
conversations with his adopted father, and he told me things about our son, because he knew he wasn't going to be here one day, and he knew I was going to be sitting with my son, and he wanted me to have all the memories I didn't have, right? And he said,
Mhm.
I bet you think that I threw him in the water to surf when he was like 3 years old. I said, yep. And he said, no, I did not. I did not, because it didn't resonate with him, and he wasn't aligned with it yet. I waited until it was the time that he chose when I could see it in him. So I let him get comfortable and play on the beach on the shore and do these flips with these sandboards and get his agility and like his confidence up. And then he told me when he was ready. And that's when I did it. Not when I thought it was right because I'm a professional surfer and I've been doing this or whatever, right? And so that's a way to visualize, I would suggest, is allowing that and not trying to force things. And then also spending time with your children, not to a point where you're shrouding them and covering them and being overwhelming to them, but being a friend too. Always come from a parent side, but you have to come with the friend side too. If you don't come from the friend side, you're not going to build that relationship, and they're not going to trust you to tell you things that they want to tell you. And that's the problem my mom and I had, was she didn't want to hear it. She's Japanese. She's Bushido warrior from the 1932, right? She was born in 1932. I don't want to hear about that. It's weakness. Don't tell me. That's an excuse. Instead of saying, maybe you should talk to me about what you're feeling, because then it'll help you to not have unprotected sex and get pregnant at a, you know what I mean? Like those,
Yes, absolutely.
that's what I would
Yeah.
say. Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a great message because really it is one of the most powerful teachings that Bob was telling us all the time. Let your kids make your own decision. And even if they're very small, you still give them two choices and they still have to make a decision. He said, you don't bring them business decisions when they're 6, it's, but you mold it into them where they have to say, what would you like to eat? Would you like this or that? So they have to make a choice. So, and then if they go bigger, they actually choose, like it's so important. And I've seen it on my kids allowing it. And it's not always easy for a parent because sometimes I'm like, oh, like I wish I could just do it for them and it's going to be faster. But that's where it goes wrong because we lose patience. We just want it quick. And we're taking the authenticity and identity of them. And I have 2 kids and they both different, they both like different things. I mean, they sporty and they both plays instrument, but they chose as we went. It's funny, you remind me of my daughter. She's actually gymnast and swimmer. She made a decision to win a gold medal for Britain one day, and she swims and swims. I love swimming. And I'm like you, I do my affirmations in the water. I'm actually in September. So, it's not,
What
water is
day in
my, it's
September? What day
20.
in,
So,
oh, so the son
mm,
I'm at, he's 26
yeah.
of September. Yep, 26th of September. But
Do you just have one son?
no, I have 4 children.
Okay.
I have
And
four.
they all in Hawaii?
No, I have one son who will be 35 this year, and he's living in North Carolina. And then I have a daughter, and I stopped counting, but she's probably going to be 30 or just turned 33. And then my son in there is 32 this September 26.
Mm,
And then I have the youngest one just turned 19, and he's of a different generation. So
mm,
it's it's crazy to have. I had all of my children like right after each other, and they're all in that post millennial, that weird, not really millennial, but like they're in that generation where
yeah,
they had technology but also experienced much more right in there. My
yeah,
son, the youngest one, grew up with all technology, right? And so
yeah.
everything, he is just, his generation is definitely different, but he is not a
Mhm,
fan of any AI. Like that
mhm,
generation he's in, it's Z, right? A lot
mhm.
of them are, because a lot of them
Yeah,
are artistic too, and they feel like it's robbing them of their artistic ability,
creativity. Yeah,
creativity. Like my son
yeah,
wants, he's a voice actor and he's trying to be a voice actor, and he's just disgusted that AI's in, with all of that. And so instead of embracing it,
yeah.
right, he has to do that on his own time, right?
I
But
think I love him already. I'm a very huge believer of because the frequencies goes. I mean,
yeah,
if we use it as a tool to tidy up the things we create, yeah,
right.
perfect. Throw
That's
it
what
all
I
in, it
do.
can tidy it up,
Yeah,
perfect. But
that's what I
actually,
do.
people are not because people are so busy, and we're in the era where if we could, you can see this even. It was funny because it was Bruce Lifton or was it Neil Donald Walsh, one of them who said like, look out there for all these people who are producing books and programs every week, and the noise they make, and the louder the noise, the much bigger luck in a roller race. And they also, so that it's all about the rushing and doing everything, and every week different book and different program, and it can never be produced working with laws and the God. It's just as simply, it's just throwing out the AI stuff, and it's not connected to your real message. And we disconnect as a humanity. And that is the truth. It's like the biggest, Neil Donald Walsh at our interview, he said the biggest problem we face as a humanity is alienation, separation. But it's this technology they're bringing in and stuff that's partly causing it, because kids are actually texting each other while they're sitting together in a circle instead of looking into each other's eyes and actually having a conversation. So the low self-esteem and the confidence is something they find harder to develop. And your book really is a remarkably inspiring, because it shows the drops, like the go down, and then you build yourself up, and like you call them blessings, which is absolutely remarkable. You look at that and see it as a blessing. But tell us what you have coming up. Is there more books in you? You
Definitely,
were mentioning a
definitely.
guidebook. What's the guidebook? Is that a link to the Vice Marie?
So when I won the bestseller award from the LA Tribune, right, that recently when we went on the book tour, a few of us, right, us authors.
Yeah.
And so one of the recommendations in the scorecard that we received, I paid attention to everything in the recommendation, and I also forwarded it to my graphic artist, the web guy, the assistant, and then I read the part about where you could take it and where they think it would be smart to append, even though I may have these other things going on, but pertaining to this particular story with the Paradise Edition, which is essentially the true story, but, adapted to be fictionalized with these characters that represent real people, but they're not named as real people, right? So, essentially, I have other volumes so I have the ancestors that I want to write about in the Wise Marie. So where I've come from, because I found out who my real father was through ancestry.com. That's a whole other part of my story that I've only touched up upon in the first volume, right? So I want to write about that, because everything ties in together, even though they may seem separate genres. So I have children's books, ages 4 to 8 years old. And I did do my own illustrations to get it started. And my graphic artist is honing in on the best versions of my illustrations that I have for the main characters, repeat characters in my children's stories. The children's stories, the reason why I wrote those was I was in a Peggy McCall, I was in a session, one of her training sessions for 3 days. And I heard something in there that if you are confident enough and you can cross the genre, it dawned on me, why don't I come from the backside, like how George Lucas did with Star Wars, and tell the story behind it so people understand? Because nobody knows the Wise Marie, and who is Kim Kano, and who's Natasha Brune, what is she really doing? Have I done all my keynote speaking yet, and have I changed the world with the masses and whatnot? No one really knows me, right? And so if I come in and
They
bring
do now. You're already in Hollywood.
right, and
It
so
started.
right. And so, but as a child, I wasn't like that. And I grew up in a time without technology, without AI. And so my children's books do not have any essence of that, as far as we use navigation, real navigation, the mango tree, the church on the corner to meet, at this time when the sun goes down or whatever, right? Like you had watches back then, and you had friends, and you had bikes, and roller skates and swimming and all the natural things that we did. And I grew up in Wisconsin during the summer, and I had a friend, and we have all these adventures that I'm bringing up and I'm writing about, but I'm also going to write about the Wise Marie in Hawaii. So there's going to be culturally, it'll touch up on the contiguous United States, the people who live on the mainland. It'll touch on people who live culturally in Hawaii, and they can resonate with like things like the beach and all the activities there. And it's still all true, but fictionalized to protect the people in the books, obviously, because there's some things where I'm gonna touch up on things that are real life situations, right? That we encountered as children, whether it was starting a tractor when we shouldn't have, because we were only like 10 years old and we had no business driving the tractor, or whatever, death, other kinds of things that will happen, but no cell phones. record players,
Mhm.
all vintage stuff, playing in the yard, garden, catching bees in the mayonnaise jar, natural things that the new generation loves, the generation that doesn't like
Yeah.
AI for the wrong reason, right? And then also tying it in at a point, not copying, but like tying it in, you know how like Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad intersect? That's
Yeah.
how it's going to be. The Wise Marie is going
Mhm.
to intersect at some point where the children turns into a teenager and the teenager, and then the books are going to stop for the children, not in a bad way, but at that point, and it'll go backwards and feather in other types of stories that are innocent and good for ages 4 to 8. But there's going to be a crossover. Then it's going to tie
Mhm.
in the adult books that are already in product, that are already out there and published. And then there's going to be volume 2 that carries me through the pandemic, post-pandemic. And then I'm deciding whether or not to write about 3, because 3 is actually where we're in now, right? And then I have
Mhm.
a couple of other novels. I'm going to write about my son, who's a professional surfer. His father is a professional surfer. The surfers out there and their world. I have a title that's already mapped out with some chapters,
Mhm.
and then professional books. So real estate, administration, all the areas in my career that I've been in, construction, hazardous waste, that tie in with regular people who have to make decisions about buying a property and all of that.
Mhm.
It's like a 101. So to answer your question, the guidebook, that is everything, and the guidebook. The LA Tribune wanted me to create a guidebook to teach me, to teach my audience how to get through all the things that I went through. And maybe I could have a guidebook of like tips and tricks that follow along
Yeah.
with the story and support the Wise Marie as a character. Sorry, I had to explain it like that, or might
No,
not.
but it's really great you did, because sometimes people find, especially if you're not in following, like we know that if you're not in the personal development industry, sometimes I speak with so much passion to my friends and they're like, what are you talking about? It's
Right, they don't
almost
get it.
like a different language,
They don't get it.
which,
Yeah.
yes.
Or
So
they
it's
think
really
it's
good.
culty. They think it's
Yes.
cult,
Yes,
cult
it
like
is
healthy. Yeah.
brainwashing sometimes, like
It is,
the
but it's
truth is,
healthy brainwashing.
yeah, it
You
is.
are
Yeah.
you're cleansing your
Yeah.
brain of the negativity. Right.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love that when you were talking, when you mentioned LA Tribune, and really you've got a beautiful, I mean, you have lots of endorsement, but let's mention Peggy McCall and Phil Goldfine. And that's why I'm gonna tie this into, this has a screenplay and it's going to Hollywood. So you're making it into movie, right?
Yes. So it's funny you said the word movie, because every time we talked, you went to Hollywood Manifest. So you
Mhm.
know that they take you into, you have to pitch your idea, just like you would
Yes.
in the, right? You have 5 minutes to pitch your idea and to hit home, right? And Peggy noticed, and so did others within the group, that I said the word movie versus series versus,
Mm.
even though I know that it could be those two and it has the potential, very much so, in a whole different direction, as Phil and I talked about. But to honor the character and the story, it has to, in my opinion, be a movie. And then from there, you
Mhm.
don't talk about any other prequels or sequels, because as Phil Goldfine says, you have to make the blockbuster or you don't have 1, 2, 3. It has to be huge, Kim. So the
Well, dream
movie,
big.
it's got to be a big one. It's got to be a big one. And it's actually already been adapted. I have an assistant who's pretty crafty. And yeah, does she use AI to help her like spell check and whatnot? Yeah, but she's already been a writer. So she's
Right.
helped me to adapt both the East Coast version and the Paradise
Mhm.
edition, so that we take the East Coast as a Broadway. I have an idea that I'm throwing out there, that I would love a famous musician of a J-Lo status, or maybe Brittany can come back to this to the world, and this would be a project. Someone who could write the music, take the story, and do the Broadway play. Okay. And that would be
Mhm.
their baby, and they could have it, and I could sign rights for that, so that that would be something that they have. I wouldn't mind entertaining an idea like that. And then, of course, the blockbuster movie, and then everything that would follow from there. Because once you have the blockbuster, then you got the dolls, the games, the this, the that, and you're not worried about. And then the book sales go up, just like
Mm.
Molly's game. As
Yeah.
Peggy said,
As you were talking about the blockbuster, you know the drill. If you can see it in your mind and you can feel it in your heart, you can hold it in your hands. It's that easy. I see it for you.
Thank you. I
I mean,
appreciate it.
this I see it as a movie because probably I don't know, it just comes to me, like the downloads. And as you were talking, I could just feel the word franchise. So I'm throwing it out there to you,
Oh,
whichever way you feel to use it, because that is what I felt, franchise. Like I can see these dolls and stickers, and like you have these
we do
amazing
have stickers.
stores. Oh, there you go. Oh,
That's the old one. That's the one that Troy wasn't really the graphic guy wasn't a fan, and he did the other one. I don't know if you want to show the other. You had that other version I sent you
oh
earlier.
yes, I did. I can actually show
So
the
he
other
morphed.
version.
He thought that the butterfly in the dark version should be the half.
Everyone
Yeah.
can see that's the new version, which
Yep.
shows the
And
darkness and the light, which I really love, the
right,
contrast.
right.
And the book is really full of contrast. So that's the good thing. It's like it's so juicy, it keeps you on the toes. It's coming from like how is she gonna get out of this and what happens next? Yeah,
right.
that's
And
the
so
new
that
cover.
the new cover, yeah, the sneak peek, and I did put this on social media, but like she's looking over her shoulder. And it's funny that he did that photo because my dad, and I didn't even tell him this. My father, who was a professional photographer, the father who I thought was my father my whole life, and later I found out wasn't, used to take pictures of me like that, looking over my
Mm.
shoulder every time I either went on a trip and I was saying goodbye or like I'll see you later kind of a thing. And he did, and I don't have those I don't have unfortunately I don't have the negatives for that for those shots anymore, but that's what he did. It's weird. Anyway.
It's,
Um
like everything happens for us. Everything's so connected. And we can, like Steve Jobs said, we can only connect the dots looking backwards. But if we listen to our intuition and we know that, like AD says, take the next right step. And the truth is, what feels right for me? And that's why I'm always asking all of you guys, like the audience, what is the next right thing for you? Because if you look like that book is really amazing because you almost like, what's next? No, what's next? But then when we look back, saying, when she was in the moment of all the things happening, she wasn't happy. Kim was like, oh my God, she probably was even asking, like, why is this happening to me? Why me? Or maybe being completely out. But then you grow and you transform and you look at that. And do you hear how many times Kim said it's a blessing? That's remarkable to actually look back and feel that this adversity and situations and challenges and circumstances, which are temporarily always, unless we roll in it, because then it's like an avalanche, isn't it? If you push the ball snowball on the top, you can still run and stop it. But once it starts going and going and rolling, it gets speed and you will not be at the bottom of the hill going like, okay, now I'm gonna catch it. You won't. So it's like your thoughts and the negative things. And this is why so that book is great because it is a fiction, but it's truth. And learning about what actually happens, what is a real life, because so you don't find out from media. People feed us with manipulated news, and the truth is we need to learn stories like this to understand and be better to help each other more. That brings me to the last question, probably towards the last before you share the final notes. But you're actually we're talking about nonprofit organization and how this is going to help. Tell us a little bit about that and the purpose for the nonprofit and what it's called.
the Aloha Jigsaw Foundation, I mentioned earlier, is a nonprofit that I started with my friend Clyde Aikau in 2023, as well as with my assistant because she is a board member, and we've added other people to the board recently, or we're about to, just because we've had a change, in our board members where we have to graduate Clyde from an active board member to an honorary board member because he recently passed away. So he and I wanted to use this organization to reach the families who were affected by the fires, who became homeless, who were not able to pay rent, have a place to live, and so forth. But because all of that since then has been resolved by either the government or other types of funding and organizations, we wanted to go a step deeper. So Clyde's idea, because there's a water problem on that island, was he wanted to start a I can never say it, and I always say it right in front of him. But they desalinize the water. They take out the saline from the water, and they have a
Mhm.
plant in Kona. And he wanted to build one there so that they had endless amounts of water, so that in case any fire ever came up again, it would be extinguished immediately without having, and that there wouldn't be water shortages and other types. And he wanted to brand the water and do all of these things. And that was his line, was we have to go back to our roots and fix the water situation there, which was great, right? Of the earth, fix it of the
Mhm.
earth, recycling, build the money for that. He also wanted to do a nonprofit where he taught children how to do things of Hawaiian ancestry with, crafting, like he had a canoe, he has a canoe here, and he wanted to rebuild the canoe with Hawaiian kids and actually teach them, take it down and show them, just show them what isn't
Mm.
shown even in schools, right?
Yeah.
Nowadays, unless you go to the Hawaiian school, right? Teach them about He'enalu, surfing. And so that was going to be his role, and he was going to call, and he was the acquisitions director, and he was going to call, and all of his contacts that he had from his other nonprofit, the Eddie Aikau Foundation. And so, but he got sick, and we got busy. And for me, I am going to I am raising money as we speak, even speaking with you, right? I'm creating visibility for
Mhm.
this. So we have a nonprofit, 501c3, IRS approved, Attorney General approved with the state of Hawaii, where we file our annual reports, our business reports with the DCCA. We're fully legitimate. We have multiple board members where I'm not the treasurer, I'm not the secretary, like there's multiple, I'm the president, CEO of the organization. And we are going to be focusing on children. And what
Mhm.
kind of children? Well, children who can either afford the mindset training camp that we're going to start off with, that's going to incorporate all the things Clyde and I wanted to do with the kids. I was going to be in charge of the mindset side of it, and I wanted to bring in leaders from around the world who are still practicing in that Bob Proctor and not Bob Proctor level, even people who
Mhm.
are like you and 80 and myself, and speak with kids and have our own kids there, like how 80 brings Milan, how I have my son with me all the time, he's
Mhm.
32, of different ages, to show examples of how when we incorporate these techniques that we learn ourselves, that it can truly help these children be
Mhm.
strong soldiers, as I talked about, and not soldiers in a bad way, but soldiers in their own right, where they're shielded.
Mhm.
They have their own, they build their own shield, right? So they can
Mhm.
handle the world and also mix and do business with people. Like when you see 80's son Milan, he speaks like an adult, right? Like even my
Yeah.
son's well spoken too. He's been around dignitaries, VIPs because of his dad, and he gets in front of people and he turns into a different person, right? Where he morphs
Mhm.
into that, right? My son on the mainland, same thing. So that's what it's all about, is we want to do that, and I am raising my own funds to get it going, because like I said, applying for grants, we're in the process of that. I have an assistant working on that. All that takes time, but it could be something where we all contribute and we're all giving back. We could hold events at different locations, whether it's in Hawaii. Really, it's meant for victims of the fires, but it could extend to other people as well, because that's what it's all about, right? We're all here to help.
Yes.
That's what.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. If you could have any number, what's the vision for the foundation?
You mean as far as like revenue?
Like, what would you love to see that the foundation holds for it to be properly functioning the way you would love to?
It
Like
has
we in a mindset coaching, like Bob used to say, what's the number? Have a
it
specific in your mind.
specific in my mind, it would have to be in the multi-million-dollar phase. And I don't, I'm not sounding overzealous or anything, but you got to aim high, right? To do the
Yeah.
things that we want to do, you need 19 million, you need 10 million, you need 12 million, 1.5 million of all of that, right? And I'm just
Mhm.
throwing words out there. But to do the things in my mind that I have already seen and manifested, right? We even want to build, I'm sitting here at a cemetery, okay? We want to get a
Mhm.
permit, and my son wants to build a place where, parents who lose their children at a young age and they can't help it, like whether it's through
Mhm.
birth and they can't afford to pay for like cremation costs and other types of things. he would like to create like not a building where they could like niches where you could put the remains
Yeah.
or offer his services to take them out to sea and scatter them out to sea. Obviously, they have to get their own permits and everything else, but he would do
Yeah.
the internment at sea and carry on the tradition that his father did, because his father did that, where he was on a
Mhm.
list where to get in with him to take your loved one out to sea. It's a whole event here. It's very spiritual in Hawaii. There's
Mhm.
a wave that comes that always when you put someone to rest, like even if there's no waves, Vladdy, it's a crazy thing. So that's what we'd like to do, really,
Oh,
is
it's so beautiful. You know, it's so
create many
heartfelt.
things.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I see that happening for you, and I'm sure we all will be helping. And you know, if there is anyone out there who's good heart in Hawaii and can help in anything, you can always get in touch with Natasha. And I'm gonna put everything around, like not everything because that's an overstatement, but I'll put all the basic informations about Natasha and her book. Natasha Kim, see you confuse me now with referring to
Yep,
Natasha. But you can find out all about natashabrune.com or devisemarie.com, but I will put the links, social media links, and please do get in touch. If you have any questions or you would like to discuss anything, you can get in touch with Kim directly and ask her or discuss anything you'd love to. So, any final
absolutely.
thoughts for your audience? Any
Yes.
message?
Yes, I am currently, as Bob says, clear the walk-in closet of all the clutter, right? And I'm on the tail end of that. I cleared the real estate portfolio, a lot of other, lines of work that it was great to have and I'm very grateful to have MSIs, right? Multiple sources of income. But if you're spinning your wheels like a hamster, it's time to move on and look at other ways that you can help the masses. So, uh, I am honing in and revamping my keynote speaking skills and offering to speak at events, whether it's real estate seminars, because I have obviously experience in that, construction, and of course with the mindset training. While I may not be as I mean, I know it sounds negative, and Peggy and Phil always say not to say that if you're not as whatever, but I incorporate and say my message in layman's terms and in ways where it'll reach people who are similar to me. And so I know that if I'm in the right setting, in the right place and time, that it's a trifecta of what I want to do, right? Concentrate with the nonprofit, the keynote speaking, and then feeding all of it. It's just going to feed everything, right? In a circle, with full circle with the author world.
Yes.
People will buy the books, and then the books feed this and that. It's all good. And that's what I want to do until I transition, is all the good and just do well and
Yeah,
apply what
that's
I learned and
brilliant.
enjoy the journey, as we always
Mm.
say, because we can get hung up on the little things, but that's what I'd say, is absolutely enjoy the journey, even in the line of fire and even in the most grim of situations, enjoy the journey, because
And
we
that's
only
my favorite sentence from Abraham Hicks. And she says, set the destination and find joy in the journey, and you will experience immediate success.
mm, love it. So true.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your story, sharing about the book. Really appreciate having you here. Love your energy, and we'll be seeing more of you over the places. But please, guys, reach out to Kim and ask her any questions. And really thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.